Hey friends, I'm here with one of my good friends and lender, Tom Shea, and I'm just had to ask him this week for a little update on what is going on. I have multiple clients calling me, asking me about the forbearance that they keep hearing in the news. Tom, can you give me a little insight into this, please?
Yeah, so let's start with what is a forbearance. And I've gotten the same amount of calls, Jenny, maybe even more with all the past clients. Hey, Tom, I haven't lost my job yet, but I hear about this forbearance. I'd love not have to pay my mortgage for 6 months. And that's really what the forbearance is. It gives you a break on paying your mortgage for 6 months. So you don't have to make a payment. And if you get your forbearance approved and you don't make a payment, that payment will not be reported as a late on your credit. So it doesn't crash your credit up front. So that's what forbearance is in a nutshell. It's a short break in making your mortgage payments for a 3-month, 4-month, 5-month, 6-month period of time. And in this case, for most banks, it's 6 months. That is what a forbearance is.
So is it a good thing that I should be recommending to my clients when they ask me about it?
That's the $64,000 question, Jenny, because you listen to the media and it sounds like, oh, this is great. I don't even have to, pretty much all the banks are accepting any excuse that you want to tie to COVID, and that they'll give you forbearance for 6 months. I don't have to make my mortgage payments for 6 months. Sounds great. Let's everybody rush and sign up. Now, let's really look at it. Use our common sense. Do we really think that banks are going to say, hey, don't bother about 6 months worth of payments? It's on us. The government's going to say, we're going to pick it up? No, that's not going to happen. In reality, what happens at the end of the 6 months is when you have to pay the piper. And people who think they're getting something for free could really get themselves in a jam. In fact, I am encouraging every single one of my clients that if there's any way they can, even if it means taking a hardship from their 401k, pay your mortgage, don't go into this forbearance. The reason why is at the end of 6 months, you're faced with some choices from the bank. And those choices are, you can have your loan reinstated. What does that mean? It means at the end of 6 months, you haven't been working for 3 or 4 months, you took forbearance, you didn't make your payments. At the end of 6 months, your payments were $3,000 a month, and it's now at the end of 6 months, coming time for month 7's payment. Well, we want our 18 grand and the $3,000 for month 7, so $21,000 all at once. That's what reinstatement is.
Wow.
Does that look easy for most people to make?
No, not at all.
A lot of people in major distress?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. So what will end up happening with a bunch of them, because banks don't want to force people into foreclosure. So what will happen with a lot of them, instead of a full reinstatement, it'll be a repayment plan. But a repayment plan still brings a lot of pain. For a short-term little gain now, feel good now, not making your payment, you're going to have a year worth of hell. And what I mean by that, let's take that same $3,000 mortgage. You didn't make a payment for 6 months. The repayment plan is, we will allow you to repay that 18 grand that you owe us or over the next year. So we'll add it to your mortgage payments over the next year. So instead of paying $3,000 a year, you can pay $3,000 a month. You'll pay $4,500 a month for the next year.
Wow, I don't know anybody who can afford that extra.
Oh, it's a killer. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't go those two routes, you're left with the possibility of 2 other routes. One is a deferment. That is highly unlikely to happen because mortgages are they're security instruments. They're mortgage-backed securities. You can't just defer the payment. So it's very rare that one gets deferred. What is more likely is they'll do a modification of the mortgage. And a modification takes your mortgage and redoes it with the missed payments, puts those in, recalculates some things. It's not quite the impact that a repayment is, and you end up paying it back slowly but surely over time. Now that modification will have a negative effect on your credit. So everybody thinks, hey, I do the forbearance, there's no negative. They told me there'd be no negative. They're right, there won't be for the first 6 months. But then if you don't go into the repayment plan or the reinstatement plan, and you go to a modification, that modification will be recorded as a negative credit event. And that will go against your credit, will hurt your credit score. The last thing that I want you and your clients to know, Jenny, is servicers and lenders already have said, if you go into forbearance, we will not be turning around and doing a refinance for you when the forbearance is over. You'll have at least a 12-month period and maybe a 24-month period before you would even qualify to buy a home again.
Wow. So that anyone who's even thinking of selling their home and then buying within a year or 2 years,
Oh,
if they do a forbearance, they're not going to be able to. They're going to be
no,
stuck.
forbearance would be just, they might as well just dig a hole and bury that plan in the backyard if they go
Wow.
into forbearance.
Okay. Well, Tom, thank you so much for explaining all of this, because I know that term is out there everywhere and people just don't understand it. You know, the government doesn't give us something for nothing. And this
That's
seems
right.
like it really has a hefty consequence down the road.
It really can. If you don't know what you're getting into, if now again, there are people that may want to do a forbearance. My son was, if he gets laid off, he'll do a forbearance, but he will pay as much as he can every month. So at
Mhm.
the end of 6 months, he won't owe 18 grand. He might owe 5 or 6, and he'll come see Bank of Tom and help him out.
All right. Well, thanks again, Tom. I really appreciate you coming in and helping me out and giving us some advice.